Good afternoon. I'm your host, Tara McGrath, and the Communication Director for Los Angeles Rabbit Foundation. We'll first do an overview presentation covering the basics on caring for rabbits and rodents in shelters. Then the founder of Los Angeles Rabbit Foundation, House Rabbit Society Chapter Manager, Michelle Kelly, who has over 20 years of experience volunteering and working in shelters with rabbits and small mammals, will be answering your questions. Please use the question and answer box during the presentation, and we'll get to as many questions as we can. Our presenter, Emily Baker, is Education Director for Los Angeles Rabbit Foundation. She has an MA in Museum Studies from Johns Hopkins University and is also currently working as museum educator at the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles County.
Thanks, Tara. We created this presentation to address the fact that most shelters have small mammals other than dogs and cats, yet many do not have the specific training in place to properly care for these species. This will be a concise presentation that covers only the basics and directs you to other resources for more detailed information. The foundations of care for all shelter animals include a physical structure, human resources, and standard operating procedures put in place to communicate what should be done and how. Establishing these foundations is all the more important for exotics such as the rabbits and rodents because fewer people know what constitutes proper housing and care for these species. Thus, the need for today's presentation. When establishing a humane program for the small animals, it's critical that administrators, employees, and volunteers contribute to a shelter culture that emphasizes care for all species. Not only do all the animals matter, but the employees and volunteers who do the actual day-to-day work caring for and socializing the rabbits and rodents should be appreciated no less than those volunteers and kennel workers who care for the shelter dogs, cats, or other animals in the shelter. In addition to the human resources within the shelter, partners in the community serve a vital purpose when it comes to optimizing care and optimization of, adoption of the rabbits and rodents. Establish a relationship with your local rescue groups that specialize in these species, and you'll benefit from their support and expertise. Such groups are an invaluable care and adoption resource, particularly when shelters take in animals with special needs or become overburdened with a large influx of rabbits or rodents. We'll now move to the main content of our presentation, a practical discussion of what is needed to care for and adopt out rabbits and the rodents most often seen in the US shelters today. So during this presentation, we'll be covering basic shelter care for domestic rabbits, guinea pigs, chinchillas, hamsters and gerbils, rats and mice. Did you know that rabbits are not rodents? They belong to the order Lagomorpha. The other species discussed today belong to Rodentia. Lagomorphs, which include rabbits, hares, and pikas, share more characteristics with deer than they do mice. Note that the domestic rabbit species, Ornithologous cuniculus, differs in significant ways from the wild cottontails and other lagomorphs in the United States. They actually have a different brain structure than their wild cousins. This means they don't have the same survival instincts as wild rabbits, and as a result need humans to protect them from the hazards of outdoor living, which include predators, fleas and flies that can spread disease, heat, toxic plants, and more. The same goes for the other species. These are not animals that have been bred to survive on their own. They're all small prey animals that have been domesticated, and we have a responsibility to care for and protect them in the animal shelters and to provide adopters and the public appropriate education on pet ownership. To begin, let's start with the basic setup of your shelter's small mammal room. Rabbits are the third most frequently abandoned species in the US after cats and dogs, showing up in animal shelters across the country. Yet, some shelters don't even have a separate area to house rabbits. And any animal without a designated living area could be considered expendable if there's a space crunch, especially when you have people out there who think that all small mammals have short lifespans, which is absolutely untrue. Giving rabbits an area of their own, away from cats and dogs, will mark the beginning of saving many more lives. All small mammals should be housed indoors in a room with temperature control, over 65 degrees and under 80 degrees Fahrenheit. The rabbit or small mammal room should be an acquired part of the animal shelter, not in the main lobby or near the intake area, nor in a glassed-in area with no place to hide. No small prey animal wants to be fishbowled. They should be as far away as possible from dogs and other predator species, and, if possible, not share the same central heating and air conditioning. The smell of predators like cats and dogs can be very frightening for small prey species. Under no circumstances should small mammals be kept in the room with ferrets. The mere smell can cause extreme fear in rabbits and bring out predatory instincts in the ferrets. Ferrets can squeeze into very small openings, such as cage doors with bendable wire. It should go without saying that small mammals cannot be kept in the same room with reptiles either. In an ideal world, the lagomorphs would be in a separate room from the rodents, but most shelters don't have space for that. For rabbits, runs or exercise pens are ideal. Cages should be as large as possible given the space available. The idea is to create the most humane environment given the space in the room, and one that matches the home environment as closely as possible. This not only provides a positive example for the public, but it's going to improve the animal's quality of life while it's at the shelter. Flooring for shelter rooms could be hard rubber, coated concrete, epoxy resin, as long as it is aired out thoroughly before the animals move in. Neither animals or humans like a strong chemical smell in the room. Note that concrete has to be coated periodically or it will absorb smells. Vinegar used to clean rabbit boxes will also eat into concrete, so it's important to clean up any spills and protect your flooring. Nobody wants to care for animals or even visit them in a stinky room. Exercise pens will help with housing some of the larger small mammals and can be stored in a closet or shed on shelter property. For smaller species, it's helpful to save tables or carts to keep the smaller cages up off the floor. Hay storage is often a bit of a challenge, but it is essential for rabbits and guinea pigs and chinchillas. Hay has to be stored in a clean, dry place or it can mold, and you can't feed mold or dusty hay to the animals. Hay also has to be in a rodent-proofed storage room or shed so you don't have any outside visitors munching away. If hay gets damp or moldy or has rodent feces in it, throw it out. Food pellets, grass mats, and chew toys require similar dry and rodent-proof storage. You do need electrical outlets in your small mammal room, a refrigerator to hold leafy greens on site, and a small freezer to hold frozen bottles of water for when your electricity or air conditioning go out. You'll also need running water to fill water dishes and rinse off litter boxes. Make sure to use good strainers over the sink drains and the floor drains too. Rabbits shed a lot, and the combination of hay and hair will clog drains unless they are properly covered. Cleaning products include distilled white vinegar, basic liquid dish soap, and accelerated hydrogen peroxide cleaner, which is known as rescue solution. Just make sure you don't store bleach, vinegar, and rescue too close to one another. And speaking of cleaning supplies, as mentioned on the previous slide, strong smelling cleaners and chemicals cannot be stored or used around small mammals, but they are vital to the health and safety of these animals. Each cage or run should be sanitized between each new animal to avoid transferring disease. Make sure you clean those cages away from the mammal room to avoid fumes. Remove all debris, including scraping anything off that is stuck to the wires, and then clean it with a disinfectant. Although distilled white vinegar solution works well for basic cleaning for the same animal, such as with daily litter box care, it won't thoroughly disinfect between animals. In addition to rescue formula, bleach can be used to disinfect. A 1-part bleach to 10 parts water solution for 15 to 20 minutes works for most severe viruses like RHDV2, but you absolutely cannot use bleach around the animals. Take equipment elsewhere and rinse thoroughly afterward until there are no more bleach fumes left. Label your disinfectants and store them separately. One time we had a volunteer fill the rabbit water bottles with distilled white vinegar, thinking it was a jug of water. This is even more important if you're decanting chemicals into spray bottles. One time I started cleaning litter boxes and realized the spray bottle was filled with rescue formula instead of vinegar. Fortunately, nothing bad happened from either of those incidences, but it's so important to label your bottles clearly and double check that they're filled with the correct thing. One more general thing to consider while getting your room set up to intake animals is who can live with whom. Rabbits and rodents should only be housed with members of their own species. Triple check the sex of your animals before bonding or leaving any of them together, and enlist the help of veterinary staff and your local species rescue if necessary. Keep unneutered animals with their sex only. This should go without saying, but we'll say it anyway. There are already too many pets in this world. We cannot contribute to the pet overpopulation problem. We must be part of the solution. Think of all the times people bring boxes of hamsters to the shelter saying, well, the pet store told me they were 2 boys. We don't want them to be able to say the same about us. Rabbits, chinchillas, and some other species can be neutered by a veterinarian experienced with that animal-specific operation and should be done so before being adopted out. Neutering has a dramatic impact on rabbits and extends the lifespan of most animals. It also allows many to have a companion when they otherwise could not. So after neutering, you may be able to bond them with a friend. Just be aware that neutered males may have live sperm for a few weeks after the procedure and therefore should not be put with unspayed females during that time. Even if neutered, if they're not already living together, don't just put 2 animals together in a cage to see if they get along. Introducing 2 animals together must be done carefully in neutral territory and with the help of a rescue or someone experienced with that species. It can take weeks or months to introduce rabbits safely and can have dire consequences if not done properly. Our webinar, Bunny Bonding Basics, walks you through the process as it pertains to rabbits specifically. You can find the video on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/LARabbits. Finally, if they are already bonded or you did complete a successful bonding, always keep bonded pairs together, provided they cannot reproduce. If they came in together, they should stay together. Animals can have broken hearts too, not to mention our hearts breaking when they come into the shelter to find a once bonded rabbit alone in their cage because a family only wanted to adopt one of them. So as we've already said, rabbits are the 3rd most commonly relinquished animal in the US after cats and dogs. Almost all open admission shelters have rabbits. Therefore, we'll go over rabbit care first. Rabbits are much more complicated animals to take care of than most people realize, so we've broken down their care into multiple slides. To get a space for a rabbit ready, start with a cool spot away from a bright sunlight. Any temperature over 80 degrees Fahrenheit is potentially life-threatening to a rabbit, particularly a compromised rabbit, and direct sunlight will raise their temperature quickly. We have found that an area thermometer works well to monitor the room's temperature, and in colder climates, temperature should be over 40 degrees Fahrenheit. It's easier to provide warmth for rabbits with hiding boxes stuffed with hay than it is to cool rabbits down in a heat wave. We hope that all shelters have backup generators in case electricity goes out. And if the AC isn't working, frozen bottles of water will help keep rabbits and other animals alive. That is why we recommend having a small freezer with bottles of ice for emergencies. The floor of the cage should be covered with newspaper or, better yet, a combination of resting mats and grass mats. Rabbits should never sit directly on a wire bottom cage. Their feet will develop sores called hutch sores or hawk sores, and they could catch their toes or feet in the wire grid. Once you have a safe floor of the cage, make sure the top is covered. Wire or solid covers are ideal. A bed sheet clipped to the edges will do in a pinch. Remember, rabbits may be able to jump much higher than you realize, and when determined, they might be able to clear the sides of an exercise pen. On intake, rabbits may be dehydrated, so you'll want to have water available for them right away. You won't know what the rabbit is used to drinking from, so it's best to have water both in a heavy ceramic bowl and a bottle if your shelter normally uses bottles. If the rabbit doesn't know how to drink from a bottle, but that's the only option you give it, it may die from dehydration. Make certain each rabbit knows how to drink from a bottle before removing the bowl of water. Additionally, the bowls must be heavy or bunnies will use them as fling toys and then again will be without water. Similar to the water dish, make sure the food dish is either a heavy bowl or, better yet, for space-saving purposes, a small dish that can clip to the side of the cage. The main proportion of a rabbit's diet is hay, so you want to be sure to set up a litter box with grass hay immediately for them. For both safety and comfort, rabbits need a hiding house with 2 doorways to go in and out of. The hiding box can be made of unfinished pine lumber, hay, seagrass, or clean cardboard, as long as Bunny doesn't ingest too much of the cardboard at once. This will give rabbits a sense of security with a place to hide in, but also a dark place to rest. Rabbits are crepuscular, which means they tend to be most active at dawn and dusk, and they're burrow animals. That means they dislike bright lights and prefer not to be in the bright sun all day. Toys are important for the rabbit's well-being. Some great chew toy options include untreated willow from a safe source, unfinished pine lumber blocks, and seagrass or dried timothy grass mats. The hiding box, grass mats, and chew toys have to be new and used only for that rabbit. These things can all go home with the rabbit when adopted, and it's nice to be able to send home a little gift bag with the new owners full of the rabbit's most beloved items. Speaking of chewing, most rabbits will chew and ingest anything in their living space, yet they cannot throw up. You must keep cages and runs free of anything rabbits could ingest that is not digestible. Things like latex gloves, disposable urine pads, anything that might accidentally be left out. I'll say the most annoying instance of that is when I left a trash bag full of soiled litter box material too close to a cage, and a rabbit was able to chew a hole in the plastic before I even realized what was going on. The same thing happened to me with a broom. They chewed the bristles off. Even leaving fabric can be dangerous if ingested, which is why we don't recommend leaving a sheet, towel, or a carpet square in a rabbit's living space long term. Rabbits will also sometimes try to bite or kick other rabbits through the cage or pen grid. Make sure you leave a minimum of 4 inches and preferably at least 6 inches between living spaces to prevent nose flaps or other injuries. Once you have the space prepared and are ready to intake animals, remember you can't just put rabbits together in cages and expect them to get along unless they came to the shelter in an already bonded pair. If they come in as newborns, they can live together up to 6 to 8 weeks old. Under no circumstances should unaltered adult rabbits over 4 months of age be housed together, because that will lead to new baby bunnies. And whether they're altered or not, plenty of rabbits are very territorial and will fight each other. So it's critical that rabbits have clean water and grass hay at all times. Rabbits rarely survive past 24 hours without water or 48 hours without food. Nothing is more important than making sure that rabbits have clean water. Hair, hay, and even toys land in water bowls and have to be cleaned out. Water bottles sometimes develop leaks, or bunnies may even chew through them if they're leaning against the cage. And a completely empty bottle from a distance may actually look like a completely full bottle. I know that if I wasn't sure, I would often go back and nudge a water bottle to set the water in motion to see where the water line was. Grass hays include oats, timothy, mountain grass, and the like. Alfalfa hay is not a grass hay, it's a legume, and should be fed only to compromised rabbits, babies, and nursing moms. And if you're doing so, it needs to be introduced into their diet slowly. Feed plain rabbit pellets in limited quantities for adults and unlimited quantities for babies. These should be alfalfa-based for a younger shelter rabbit population. Many rabbits will overeat pellets if given the opportunity, so don't let them beg more out of you unless they are underweight. Obesity creates serious medical problems and is common in shelter rabbits. This results from a combination of too many food pellets and not enough hay and exercise. Adult rabbits require only an eighth to a quarter of a cup of plain food pellets per day. They typically consume the pellets within minutes, leaving an empty food bowl. Often, well-meaning staff or volunteers will see the empty dish and refill it to the top. It's a great idea for all shelters to have a dry erase whiteboard or a checklist in their rabbit area to indicate whether or not the rabbits have been fed their pellets that day already. Remember, all rabbits need unlimited hay, but only baby rabbits should have unlimited pellets. Exceptions would include rabbits with special veterinary conditions, such that they cannot eat enough hay to maintain weight and health. Always defer to your veterinary staff when it comes to rabbit diets. Leafy greens should be consistent and only fed to rabbits over 3 months of age. For example, 1 to 2 leaves of romaine lettuce and maybe a sprig of parsley or cilantro. In a shelter environment, I would feed just 1 cup of leafy greens per day to encourage consumption of more hay and water, which helps with healthy digestion and prevent obesity. You can find a good list of leafy greens for bunnies at rabbit.org or larabbits.org. Rabbits should be exercised daily in a larger area outside their cage or run. Folding dog playpens work well for this, with a washable sheet and waterproofing over the floor. Expect marking of urine and droppings. Rabbits are very territorial animals. For younger rabbits, use a small animal pen with smaller wire gridding. Sheets should be washed between each set of rabbits or other animals, and never exercise multiple species together. We'll talk about how to get the rabbits to and from the exercise area in just a moment. Socializing the rabbits to be used to humans can be done while exercising them. Monitor the rabbits carefully and spend time in the playpens with the rabbits, preferably at their level, sitting on a towel or a sheet on the floor. Talking with the rabbits and petting them when they come up to you in a playpen is a good way to reinforce positive social behavior. Younger volunteers can help socialize rabbits by reading to them. And when a rabbit approaches you to be petted, gently pet with the flat of your hand, starting at the top of the nose and petting towards the ears in the direction of the fur. One thing I always have to remind people is that rabbits have a blind spot right in front of their nose, so they can't see you holding your hand out for them to sniff. Better to just go straight in for a pet on that nose. Finally, keep a careful eye on their health. Monitor for rabbits fighting with their cage mates, especially among same-sex pairs, any unaltered rabbits, and rabbits too young to be neutered, which would be between the age of 2 and 4 months. As you clean the cages or runs, watch for health concerns such as reduction in food intake. When you're cleaning litter boxes, check each one to make sure there are no changes in their fecal and urine output, and if you notice any other change in appearance or behavior, notify shelter veterinary staff. One of the most common rabbit illnesses, GI stasis, can be avoided if you provide lots of hay and daily exercise, and remove excess hair when rabbits are shedding. Check out our YouTube channel at youtube.com/LARabbits for a video on the important signs to look for so you can catch GI stasis before it turns deadly. So that brings us to proper litter box care. Why does the litter box absolutely have to be changed daily? Hay is 80 to 90% of the adult rabbit's diet. It promotes gut and dental health. Fresh hay and lots of it will literally keep your rabbit alive. Changing the litter box will give you that opportunity to keep an eye on whether they're pooping at normal levels. And finally, perhaps most obviously, it keeps the room clean, odor-free, and keeps insects at bay. The best rabbit-safe litter to use in shelters is the pelleted wood litter, not wood shavings, because they're inexpensive It absorbs urine smell best, and it weighs down the litter box so rabbits won't move the box as much. Because it's heavier, rabbits don't make as big a mess as with newspaper, regular paper, or chip litters. Make sure it's labeled so it's never confused with rabbit pellet food. And be sure that you never use clumping or cat clay litter for rabbits, as it can cause a fatal blockage, or anything with cedar wood, which can be dangerous for rabbits. See rabbit.org for a complete list of rabbit-safe litters. Another question we get asked frequently is, why do you put hay in the litter box instead of a separate hay rack? Rabbits love to eat and poop in the same area. Hay in the litter box therefore improves their bathroom habits, and good box habits help rabbits find and keep forever indoor homes. We like to explain that rabbits have a kitchen side and a bathroom side to the box, and that's pretty much true. Rabbits prefer not to eat soiled hay and will only do so if you don't change or refill their hay box often enough. Here's how you change the litter box. First, dump contents of the litter box out into the green cycle bin or trash. Second, spray distilled white vinegar on the bottom of the litter box, concentrating the spray where you see any buildup. Let it soak for 3 to 5 minutes. Third, rinse with water. Add a drop of dish soap and rinse again to get rid of the vinegar smell. Fourth, dry either with a paper towel or place in the sun to dry. And last, refill the dry box with a thin layer of rabbit-safe litter and lots of hay, banking the hay away from the back corner, the bathroom side of the box. Okay, now that you know how to set up the rabbit room, keep it clean, and what to feed the rabbits, it's time to learn how to handle them, because that's a very careful process. If you aren't 100% comfortable handling rabbits, use carriers to move them from their cages or runs to the exercise area. On the next slide, we'll show you how to pick up a rabbit when necessary. And when rabbits are shedding, it's critical to remove all the excess hair that you can. You can do this by gently running your hand in the direction of the rabbit's fur and plucking the loose hairs off with your fingers. The loose fur will be pretty obvious because it will be sticking out in little tufts. Use a clean rubber brush or a super comb, which you see pictured, at a 45-degree angle in the direction of the fur, and this helps prevent ingestion of fur that can cause a potentially fatal blockage. Rabbits groom themselves as much or more than a cat and do not need bathing. In fact, bathing them can be dangerous. They can go hyperthermic if you do so. If bunnies have stains from urine or dirt, those will all go away with the first shed after their neuter operation. Spot cleaning for rabbits with dirty bottoms should be supervised otherwise by shelter veterinary staff. You'll also want to notify veterinary staff if you see a flea or fur loss that could indicate mites. Many flea treatments safe for dogs and cats are fatal to rabbits. We can't go into too much detail here, but we are planning another webinar on handling and grooming in the next few months. Remember, it's best to pick up rabbits only when absolutely necessary, but you do have to know how to handle a rabbit in case of emergency, and there are times when you must pick a bunny up. So here's how to do it safely. You'll start by calming the rabbit. Pet your bunny gently on top of the head, and this is the standard pre-handling position and the way to stop a rabbit from hopping past you. Second, you'll get in position. Slide one hand under and around his front legs and place your other hand across the back above the tail so that when you pick him up, you're supporting him at both ends. Proceed immediately to step 3. Lift gently but firmly and confidently until you have him securely in your arms. As you lift, make sure bunny is curled into a C shape. Then step 4, hold securely. Make sure you have a firm yet gentle hold on the bunny. Some bunnies like to hide their head under your arm and makes them feel more secure. And finally, when putting bunny back down, make sure they do not launch out of your arms. Practice picking up the rabbit and putting it back down, just a short distance from the floor at first, perhaps onto your lap, and then put it down immediately. A word about handling rabbits. First, Most rabbits hate being picked up. They're very aware of their prey status. Don't force yourself on the rabbit, but interact on the floor or couch and let the bunny come to you first if possible. Second, fearful rabbits will bite and scratch to be freed. This is normal rabbit behavior. A pattern of being forcibly picked up can lead to a rabbit becoming defensive and biting or attacking anyone reaching into their living space, especially a cage in a shelter environment. Such rabbits are not mean. They need gentle, appropriate handling and work with a rabbit rescuer or volunteer if shelter staff do not have the time for this. Small prey animals should not be killed for biting. Learn to interact safely with the animal or protect yourself using heavy gloves. Having said this, I would not advocate for matching a rabbit who bites often with a family that has children. Rabbits have such strong teeth that they can break the skin, which will leave scars. By comparison, guinea pigs are much less likely to bite. Something very important to keep in mind right now is RHDV2, Rabbit Hemorrhagic Disease Virus 2, or RHDV2 for short, is a rabbit virus that impacts rabbits, but not other animals or people. It can cause necrotizing hepatitis, internal bleeding, and usually a pretty terrible death. In 2020, a new strain of the virus appeared in the southwestern US. This strain has a 90% fatality rate and is gradually spreading across the country. Unfortunately, RHDV2 is highly contagious. When it has appeared in animal shelters around the world, the entire shelter rabbit population had to be killed for humane reasons and to prevent spread. What does all this mean for animal shelters? Well, first, if RHDV2 has reached your state, the animal shelter should be quarantining all new rabbits for the length of time required by your state veterinarian. This is usually 10 to 14 days. All rabbits should be vaccinated before going into the general population of the shelter. In terms of allowing visitors into the rabbit area, it would be wise to limit to key personnel and series of potential adopters only, and to schedule adoptions by appointment. And we recommend that rabbits be vaccinated for 18 days prior to introduction with any other rabbits. If you have rabbits at home and work or volunteer in an animal shelter, you will definitely want to get your personal rabbits vaccinated. For more detailed information, including a step-by-step guide designed specifically for animal shelters on how to deal with RHDV2 in your area, see rabbit.org/RHDV. Rabbit adoptions are a tricky subject because people often come in knowing very little about proper rabbit care. So it's your job to make sure people know what they're getting into. The good news is that once people adopt and fall in love with rabbits, they're usually hooked for life. Some things you need to make sure happens on the shelter side before an adoption: neuter prior to adoption or there will be problems. Smelly shelter rooms, returns on adoption, unhappy rabbits or adopters, or more bunnies are all possible results. Keep bonded pairs together. As we said, rabbits bond for life. And last, an adoption fee of $50 is necessary because sadly, rabbits can often be used for non-pet purposes. Adoption counseling or matchmaking is a whole topic by itself, so we'll only be able to touch on the basics here. First, you'll want to remind potential adopters that the setup you see in the shelter is not adequate for long-term housing. At home, it's more important to rabbit-proof and give the bunny more space to hop and play. Matchmaking humans to rabbits, rabbits to rabbits, and rabbits to other pets is an important thing. Keep them away from noisy predator pets if they're fearful, and always ask if there are other animals in the household. Matching the rabbit with the humans. Potential adopters may not realize that rabbits live up to 15 years. You may want to suggest that they consider another species, such as a hamster, if a shorter lifespan is a better match for the family. Or if there are younger children, a guinea pig is less likely to bite than a rabbit. Or a large, gentle rabbit may be just the ticket. Your task is to let them know what they're getting into with whatever species they're considering. Matching the rabbit with other animals in the household. When talking about other species in the same household, it's important to remember that rabbits can also have a heart attack from fear, which is why the attitude of the rabbit, also known as rabbitude, is sometimes as important for the behavior of the other animal, Smaller, high-strung rabbits are not a good bet for interspecies relationships. The rabbit's history with other animals, if known, can provide a clue as to how they might do with others. Rabbits and cats are one of the safest combinations. Dogs and rabbits are inherently riskier, but can work if the dog does not have a high prey drive. Birds or rodents and rabbits may work if they're housed separately, but can't live together for health reasons. Rabbits cannot be housed with chickens, for example, or they could pick up salmonella, ingest the feed, or be exposed to bird feces. And it should go without saying that rabbits should not be in the same room with risky animals like ferrets, snake, and others that might kill rabbits. If you're in an area where RHDV2 has not yet been confirmed, it may be possible to take the animals off-site or to a separate room in the shelter to introduce rabbits safely to the other pets in the family and see if it looks like a good match. When matching rabbits with other rabbits, unless you have extensive experience, it's best to rely on a local rescue group to help with this. Rabbits can seriously injure or kill one another if they're not introduced properly. Knowledge that will keep the rabbit alive and happy longer term, we recommend providing care information in every medium possible. There's a great short video on YouTube called Rabbits Revisited with Amy Sedaris that covers some of the key basics. It's a great jumping off point for more in-depth discussion about rabbits. Encourage people to read a before you adopt checklist before deciding to adopt, and give a more detailed care booklet upon adoption. House Rabbit Society has an excellent Did You Know poster in English and Spanish that the organization donates to shelters everywhere in the US. It's downloadable from www.rabbit.org. Rabbit.org also provides a list of rabbit organizations that can help shelters with their rabbit care and adoption programs. Cultivating a relationship with your local rabbit group is vital. That will help your shelter place hard to adopt rabbits, assist with education, and provide support when a large number of rabbits comes into the shelter at once. You'll also want to hit a few critical points before adopters leave. Talk with them about keeping rabbits over 40 and under 80 degrees Fahrenheit, keeping diet consistent, and going to the veterinarian if they see sudden change in the bunny's appearance or behavior. Show how to gently pet rabbits from the nose back in the direction of the fur, and demonstrate how to pick up a rabbit in case that's necessary. Moving bunny from playpen to carrier is the perfect time for this. And finally, because RHDV2 is brand new to the US in 2020, many people don't realize rabbits need an annual booster shot. So that's something you want to make sure they know about. Always thank people for adopting and follow up on adoptions with a call or email.
Thank you, Emily. Moving on to another hay-eating species, but in the Rodentia family, we have guinea pigs. Guinea pigs are similar to rabbits in that they also require unlimited hay and water and also need veggies. Their food pellets are different though, and they require vitamin C. They're also different from rabbits in that they typically do not litter train well, but luckily they don't require as much space and they can't jump very high at all, which makes it easy to set them up in a low pen for exercise, assuming there are no predators in the room. In terms of housing, guinea pigs must be on a solid floor and never in a wire-floored cage. They can easily break their feet or get bumblefoot from being on wire. The solid-floored, quote, rabbit cages sold in pet supply stores are often okay for short-term guinea pig housing in shelters. The guinea pig cages are invariably too small. The guinea pig cage should have a floor pan with sides going up at least 6 inches to keep the bedding contained and be lined with newspaper and a thick layer of recycled paper litter. To encourage using one area as a bathroom, place a shallow litter box in one corner and load it up with grass hay. Or cover the entire bottom of the cage with newspaper covered with hay and change daily. Guinea pigs need a hiding house inside the cage, just like rabbits, so they have a place to retreat when they feel stressed or want to rest away from the light. Unlike rabbits, guinea pigs can be bathed, but most won't need that at the shelter unless they come in very dirty. Long-haired pigs will need daily combing. If nails are long, they'll need a trim. Male guinea pigs may need their grease glands cleaned. And if the guinea pig is impacted, again, this is more common in males, veterinary staff may have to remove built-up fecal matter. Fun. Like rabbits, guinea pigs require unlimited hay and water, as we've said, but they more readily drink water from a bottle. Make sure they are getting water from the bottle, that water level goes down. In addition to the water and hay, guinea pigs need a pelleted commercial food formulated specifically for guinea pigs and free of nuts, seeds, colored bits, etc., some leafy greens, and some form of vitamin C to prevent scurvy. Rather than count on guinea pigs getting enough vitamin C from their pellets and veggies, some shelters like to use the vitamin C tablets, Oxbow sells those, and use them maybe as treats, but don't put vitamin C in the water bottle because it dilutes the water. You don't know exactly what concentration of vitamin C they're getting, and it makes the water taste bitter, which can then lead to the guinea pig becoming dehydrated. If you are able to provide consistent veggies to the guinea pigs in your shelter, feed 1/8 of a bell pepper per day rather than use those vitamin C tablets. Guinea pigs need a consistent diet, but are less prone to enterotoxemia from a sudden change in diet than rabbits. In terms of housing, guinea pigs can be housed separately in the same room as rabbits, but they shouldn't share cages, tunnels, and other equipment. Most rabbits carry bordetella, which can be fatal to guinea pigs. A rabbit's powerful back legs could also seriously injure a pig. And also, rabbits require significantly more space than guinea pigs, and they speak a different language. Guinea pigs are social animals and often greet you with a loud week. Compared with rabbits, they bond easier with members of their own species. Female-female introductions are easiest. Male-male bonds are possible, and neutered males may get along with other males better and can almost always live with females. If you have babies at the shelter, be aware that boys should be separated from mom and other girls at just 3 weeks of age. They get pregnant early on. When adopting out guinea pigs, bonded pairs must always be adopted together. It's important to make certain that a reasonable adoption fee is charged and that adopters know the care basics for this small prey species. There's a great care sheet available free and in multiple languages downloadable from guinealinks.org. One great tip for adopters: since commercial cages for guinea pigs tend to be way too small, you can make or buy what's called CNC or cubes and coroplast cages. Guineapigcages.com has many options listed. If adopters don't have quite enough space for rabbits and like the idea of a gentler species for a family pet, guinea pigs may be an excellent match. Chinchillas, like rabbits and guinea pigs, fall into the hay eater category, but they differ in a few significant ways. Most importantly, you must never bathe a chinchilla. They can go hypothermic and even grow fungus on their fur. Instead, chinchillas require a dust bath to remove oils from their coat. Don't leave the dust bath on the floor of the cage though, because they might use it as a litter box. Instead, provide the dust bath 3 to 4 times a week, for 3 to 5 minutes each. Another key difference is that chinchillas have a low tolerance for humidity, particularly when combined with high temperatures. 75% humidity in a 75-degree room is a death trap for a chinchilla. It's helpful to remember that chinchillas originate from the Andes, where the humidity was low and they left about on rocky sides of mountains. Chinchillas therefore need a tall cage with levels throughout so they can leap from platform to platform. Some chins will learn to use a litter box. Provide a corner box with recycled paper litter in it to see if they use it. They also need a hiding box to retreat into. When they're frightened, chinchillas make a barking sound. They're quite vocal. A chinchilla's diet consists of water, hay, commercial pellets, again with no seeds, nuts, or colored bits, and limited leafy greens such as romaine or red leaf lettuce. Hay goes in a rack off the floor. Water bottle attached to the outside of the cage or in a glass bottle. Food bowl fastened to the cage, and newspaper or paper litter on the bottom of the cage, changed often. Like other small mammals, chinchillas appreciate wooden chew toys. Most toys safe for birds are also okay for chins. You can provide a large wheel with a solid running surface around 16 inches in diameter on the floor of the cage for extra enrichment. Chinchillas may get along safely with one another if they are unaltered and the same sex, but the most stable bond is of a neutered and spayed chinchilla. When adopting out chinchillas, bonded pairs must always be adopted together. It's important to note too that chinchillas sell for more money in pet stores than other rodents, and therefore the adoption fee should be higher. And I'd recommend at least $100 adoption fee. They live longer than rabbits, up to 20 years or more, so adopters should know they're a longer term commitment. There's some good basic care information about chinchillas at wecompanions.org. Moving along to hamsters and a little bit about gerbils. Hamsters come in 3 basic size ranges. The Syrians are the biggest, up to 6 inches. The dwarves are much smaller, about 2 to 3. And the Rabarovskis are the smallest and fastest hamsters. This is important because you will need a cage, tubing, wheel, and hiding house appropriate for your size hamster. Cages should be cleaned as needed every few days with a 50-50 mixture of distilled white vinegar and water, followed by a drop of dish soap and rinsed and dried well. As with other animals, bottles and food dishes should be washed daily. Note that if hamsters are in anything with tall, smooth sides, they can't get out of it. This can be useful when you're cleaning their cages, as you can put them in a bin during that time. Syrian and dwarf hamsters benefit from spacious wire cages, while the robos may need a large aquarium with a secure mesh top for breathability. The cage bottom for all breeds should be solid and covered with a thick layer of unscented paper or aspen litter. Now, some dwarf and robo hamsters will get along with others of the same sex and can be housed together in pairs or groups. But Syrians must be housed separately and never house different breeds of hamsters together. Handling and socialization can be tricky with hamsters, as they are acutely aware of their small prey status. Syrians tend to be more trusting, while robos are less likely to tolerate handling. Remember that hamsters are nocturnal. Leave them alone as much as possible during the middle of the day when they're trying to sleep. Don't stick your fingers through the cage bars when feeding the hamster, or reach in and grab the hamster without earning his trust first. You gain a hamster's trust by talking gently to him, especially when you give him food. When you want to interact with a hamster, it's best to start using a cup turned sideways with a bit of food in it and lure the hamster in, and then turn the cup slowly onto its side and let the hamster come out on his own terms. You can make small disposable hiding houses out of cardboard tea boxes or small tissue boxes. Replace them every time you clean the cage to keep it smelling fresh. Just transfer a bit of the old bedding into the new hiding box so that it smells like home to the hams. Hamster diets consist of water in a bottle, plain commercial hamster food, and a very tiny amount of fresh food like oats or sunflower seeds, plus oats or sunflower seeds once or twice a week. For most hamsters, the size of their paw is about the right amount for these supplemental foods. Hamsters are prone to diabetes and should not be fed fruits or vegetables high in sugar. Just a few words about gerbils, because we're based in California and they're actually not legal here, but they're around other parts of the country. If you happen to live in an area where gerbils are legal, they're those cute fellows that look like hamsters, but are a little bigger typically and have long tails. And their care is similar to that of hamsters. However, they tend to be more social love other gerbils and become depressed if they don't have a gerbil friend. They're also much easier to handle and more likely to enjoy interaction with people than most hamsters. More information about hamsters can be found at wecompanions.org. Moving along to rats. Rats need at least 2 square feet in their cage, preferably a tall, multi-level cage with shelves. Cages must have grid less than 1/2 inches, or rats could squeeze out. Rats love hammocks and like to play with toys. Most bird toys are safe for rats. They also need some kind of hiding house. And many will use a wheel, which should be 16 inches in diameter. The bottom of the cage should be lined with recycled paper or aspen litter. Rats are intelligent, social animals that generally make great pets as long as they are given attention. But if you neglect them, they can regress. So in the shelter, it's important to give them daily attention. Rats generally love the company of other rats and should be housed and adopted in same-sex pairs or groups if at all possible. They're quite territorial, so it's important not to put one rat into another's cage if they're not already bonded. Rats can be neutered, and that may help them to get along with others. They should be kept from other small mammals, as they may attack those other mammals and cause serious bodily harm. I've even seen a rat chasing a cat. It's best to provide water in a bottle for sanitary reasons. The basis of a rabbit's diet is a quality lab block, but they also love a variety of foods and can have a small amount of fruits and vegetables daily. There's a long list of rabbit-safe foods included in the care information at wecompanions.org, along with a list of foods that are toxic or not good for rats. Here are just a few foods that rats do enjoy: peas, carrots, broccoli, cauliflower, grapes, banana, chicken bones, pasta, and rice. An occasional sunflower or pumpkin seed may make a fun treat for rats. When adopting out rats, be sure to emphasize that bonded pairs must stay together. Are you sensing a theme here? Don't split up families unless it's absolutely necessary to prevent babies. Of all these small species discussed today, rats are the hardiest. They are least likely to be accidentally injured, and they tolerate multiple kinds of foods. They're also more confident around people and highly interactive, similar to a gerbil. For these reasons, they often make better pets for families with children than rabbits, hamsters, or chinchillas. Moving along to mice. If mice are housed in an aquarium, it must be cleaned often and the lid be strong mesh to allow for airflow. Mice can be kept in fine grid cages, but keep in mind that they are tiny escape artists that can get out of very small spaces. Luckily, they'll go right into a humane shop with a bit of peanut butter. Though they run a few miles every night and definitely need a wheel for all that energy. Wheels are really not optional for mice. They have to have a wheel. Cardboard, paper towel tubes, and tree branches make fun tunnels and climbing places. Provide a hiding house with a small box or flower pot turned upside down over the bedding. Mice like it warmer than rabbits and chinchillas in their room. If there's a nice toasty corner of the room, that's a good place for the mice to live. Female mice typically get along in a group or pairs. Male mice can only be housed together when they are babies. Adult male mice cannot be housed together with other intact, that's not neutered, adult male mice, or violence will ensue. The boys can also get quite pungent, so clean their cage or aquarium often. It is possible to neuter mice and enable them to live peacefully with other mice. Spaying isn't recommended, but you can neuter the males, but that has to be done by an exotic veterinarian experienced in such surgeries. Like rats and hamsters, mice drink from a bottle and eat lab blocks or pelleted commercial mouse food. Supplement their diet with a small amount of fresh food daily. Tiny bits of peas, pears, apples, bananas, carrots, broccoli, zucchini, and cucumber are all good. For a treat, they can have pumpkin or sunflower seeds or a few oats. Mice will sit on your shoulder or in your hand once they get to know and trust you. So cute. However, they can suddenly jump if frightened, so carry them carefully in a paper cup or your cupped hands. Younger children should always be supervised around mice, which are much more fragile than rats. For all rabbits and rodents, we've already talked about temperature, but it can't be emphasized too much. This is one of the main reasons small mammals should not be housed outside. We like to use a small thermometer near the animals to monitor the temperature in that part of the room. As you may notice that sometimes the temperature differs depending on where you're standing in the room. Again, temperatures must be under 80, cooler for rabbits and chinchillas than for guinea pigs, rats, and mice. If housing all rabbits and rodents in the same room, set the thermostat at 68 to 72 Fahrenheit and provide warm bedding in tiny houses inside the cages for the smaller rodents. If your shelter doesn't have soundproofing around the rabbit and rodent rooms, try to do what you can to buffer the sound of barking, meowing, and excited people. During the day, you can play low classical music or soft jazz to create white noise. Remember that hamsters are nocturnal, and other small mammals like to nap in the middle of the day, so it's best to keep voices down and movements gentle. Small mammals escape from small spaces. Make sure the cage grid is an appropriate size so you don't have escapees, or in the case of the larger species, they can't get their heads caught. I remember one time at our local shelter when we had mice escape from cages with wire grid much too wide for them. The whole room was full of escaped mice, but fortunately they got hungry and walked right into the humane traps we set out. We had to build emergency mouse bins for them. Most small mammals can suffer broken legs or backs if dropped, or if they fall from a short distance onto a hard floor. So make sure you have control over these small mammals when picking them up, and don't let untrained staff or volunteers handle them until they feel comfortable doing so. Finally, well, not quite finally here, rabbits and rodents are all chewers. Make sure everything they have access to is either digestible or will pass through them. Note that most pet store treats and many other commercially mass-produced products are not good for the animals. Just because a product has a picture of a rabbit on it doesn't mean that it's healthy or even safe for a rabbit. One example is those yogurt drops made from sucrose and milk product. They're flat out bad for rabbits. Seed and nut products can present a choking hazard to guinea pigs. Wheels that don't have a solid floor can break tiny legs and feet. And those pet store starter kits for rabbits, don't get me started. Don't get me started. Some small mammals have digestive problems if fed too much in the way of fresh foods. We won't have time to go into detail with specific lists of leafy greens, vegetables, and fruit and treats for each species here. Suffice it to say that either hay and pellets for rabbits, guinea pigs, and chinchillas, or lab blocks for hamsters, rats, and mice, along with fresh water at all times, should provide the basis of their diet. Before feeding any extra foods, be sure to check against the sources we'll provide during this presentation. Always use bedding or litter that is safe for small mammals. Cedar shavings, clay, clumping, and most other cat litters are not safe. Here's a handy reference chart highlighting some of the difference between these rabbits and rodent species. For the species that need hay, they need unlimited hay. Vitamin C supplements are good for guinea pigs only. Hamsters, rats, and mice need a different kind of food than rabbits, chinchilla, and guinea pigs. An all-purpose lab block will do short-term for these small rodents as long as they have a few supplementary foods. Long-term, it's best to provide a quality commercial food formulated specifically for that species. Mice and hamsters must have wheels for their health and happiness, while it's optional for chinchillas and rats. Wheels must be solid floor only and the appropriate size for the animal. Under no circumstance, use a wire wheel. If someone donates a wire wheel, put it with the yogurt drops in the round bin. Just throw them out. Too small a wheel for the animal can also cause spinal and other injuries. Dust baths are only for chinchillas. Guinea pigs and rats can be bathed carefully with soap and water as needed. Of these species, only guinea pigs are likely to need a bath in the shelter, and in most cases, that isn't even necessary. You must never, ever bathe a chinchilla with water, and bathing a rabbit should only be done by veterinary staff as needed, usually just spot cleaning. Though many pet store treats for rabbits and guinea pigs have seeds, they are not healthy for these species. Instead, rabbits, guinea pigs, and chinchillas need a few leafy greens a day. Greens are trickier for rabbits and for hamsters and mice, as they can create digestive problems, but hamsters and mice can have seeds. Feed hamsters, rats, and mice sunflower or pumpkin seeds only as a treat, not as a mainstay of their diet. Do not feed salted or shelled seeds. Opening up the seeds is half the fun. It is helpful to know the average lifespan of these species in order to tell adopters how long they'll be around. Lifespan of the rabbit is average 8 to 12 years if they're kept indoors. They can live up to 15 years. Chinchillas have an average lifespan of 10 to 20 years, while the oldest chinchilla lived to be 29. Guinea pigs live 4 to 8 years on average, less than a rabbit. Hamsters live a range of 2 to 3 years average, though they can live longer, and gerbils live longer than hamsters. The average rat age is 2 to 3 years, but like a hamster, they can live a few years longer with proper care. These are all approximations and vary depending on the level of care and whether or not the animal has been neutered. Generally, neutered rabbits live a lot longer than unneutered rabbits. Unneutered animals, any of these species that can be neutered. We've gotten you all set up to intake animals into the shelter and to keep them comfortable and healthy while temporarily staying there. But ultimately, the goal is to get them back out of the shelter and into the loving arms of a new family. Charging a reasonable adoption fee will help ensure that small mammals are adopted as pets, not to be used as food for snakes, humans, or other animals. There's a real danger that the cuteness of a small animal will lead to impulse adoptions that don't last. Adoptions have a happier outcome for everyone, being people go into them with their eyes wide open. It's important to remind potential adopters that a small prey animal is not a, quote, ideal starter pet. Young children can't be responsible for a fragile animal such as a hamster or a complicated animal like a rabbit. Although rats are a little bit hardier and perhaps better for kids than some of the small animals, it's often best to start with a larger, stronger family pet, such as a cat or dog, under adult supervision. Many rabbits and rodents bond for life, and it's cruel to separate them. If the animals get along fine and are not able to reproduce, they are neutered if rabbits or chinchillas, and same-sex roommates if hamsters, mice, or rats, then they should be adopted together. This also optimizes adoptions because it's easier to find one humane than two. Obviously, if you have a group of, say, 6 girl mice, you might not find anyone willing to adopt all 6, but it would be cruel to just pull one mouse out and adopt her separately. And in that case, you might find a home for them in pairs or small groups. Things to consider when adopting any rabbit or rodent include who will be the primary caretaker. This should be an adult or older child, supervised by an adult. Can you keep your small pet safe from other pets in the household? Are you willing to provide veterinary care? Rabbits and rodents are classified as exotics and require special veterinarians trained in their care. That may mean driving farther and paying more, but they are absolutely worth it. And with that, I'll turn the microphone back over to Tara, who will conclude this presentation and moderate the question and answer session.
Thank you for attending our webinar. We will be following up with a Q&A session, but if you have any questions about rabbits at any other point in time, there are good written resources for rabbits at www.rabbit.org and www.larabbits.org, and information on rodents on wecompanions.org. You can also email us at larabbits@gmail.com, And please subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/LA Rabbits to see this and future educational videos from Los Angeles Rabbit Foundation.